What's my people? Hey there. Okay, get this side, girls. This is my better side. Howdy. Oh, I love that wonderful, powerful aroma of that hormone, estrogen. Yes. Gosh, you guys look just like you do when I'm on TV. How does that work? Okay, so I love Bakersfield. When we played here, I see you back there. When we played Bakersfield, Winona and I, true story, they had to call out a lot of deputies because we caused such a ruckus. Some of the guys were rushing the stage. My dress fell off, my skirt fell off. I did a costume change, and there was a little piece of Velcro, and as I was running back on stage after I'd switched costumes, the little piece fell off. I jumped behind our stand-up bass player and twirled his bass once, which fell over. So there I was, and then all of a sudden, Winona and I see these two guys coming down the main aisle. One guy was on the other one's shoulders, and they were going, marry me, marry me, marry me. So Winona and I were too tickled to sing, and then all the guys started rushing. Someone called 911, and a bunch of deputies had to come. I loved it! I loved the excitement. So that's my vision, that's my memory of the last time that we played Bakersfield. How y'all doing up there? So here's the deal. Ooh. Wait a minute. Can I just, can you hold that for me? I'm going to say that. I am thrilled that you characters care enough about yourself to come out. Now, I'm going to tell you something that I talked about with my girlfriend Oprah. I just love to say that. My girlfriend Oprah. The last time I was on her show, she said we'd been on more times than anybody else. True story. We'd been on Oprah 19 times. Now, where's our little display up here? Casey's got it over there. Okay, this is what I want to talk to you all about today. Now, I want you to pretend that we're sitting at my house on the front porch. We got a pitcher of iced tea. I just made you some lunch, and it's our stories that connect us. So I'm going to tell you a story. It's going to shock you, but hey, it's real life, right? Can't beat it with a stick. Now, anybody here from Kentucky? How about you, UK? We got a good team this year. I'm from a tiny town in Kentucky called Ashland. Mama lived in the house I was born and raised in until last year. I'm 70, so get over it. I can see somebody at this table right over there going, "You reckon she's had a facelift?" Well, of course I have. I'm an entertainer. I'm also on prednisone, so my face looks like a balloon. But anyway, little shading here, little shading there. Here's the deal. In 1963, can you remember back that far? Some of you weren't even born, but it was another time in our culture. 1963, small town, Mayberry, RFD, remember? Remember all that? Like I said, I was born and raised in the same house my whole life. And I was the oldest of a big family. Daddy had a gas station. I could walk to Daddy's gas station. I could walk to the First Baptist Church where I played piano. I was a town good girl. I made A's. I kept my room clean. You know the type. We only had one high school. It was the night before my senior year of high school. And I had never been left alone at home, ever. Mama was a homemaker. Like I said, I was the oldest. But that night, before my senior year of high school, I was left alone because my little brother Brian, who was 2 years younger, had curly red hair like Opie on Eddie Griffith. Brian had Hodgkin's, so Mommy and Daddy took him to the next state to try to find some kind of good doctor in the area. And an older boy in town, this is embarrassing, came by. Everybody knew everything, so they knew I was alone, and got me pregnant the first time I ever had sex. 3 months later, when I realized I was pregnant, and it is biologically possible to get pregnant the first time you have sex. I know a lot of you all know that. 3 months later, actually on the day that we buried John F. Kennedy, President Kennedy, it was in November, the day that we buried him, I realized I was pregnant. So I was having my own personal tragedy. I didn't tell anybody, so I told this guy, his name was Charlie Jordan. I told Charlie Jordan, I think I'm pregnant. Well, he skipped town. We never heard from him again, ever. Ever. Winona never met him, nothing. He skipped town, didn't even know where he was. And then 9 months later, I gave birth to Winona Ellen Judd on graduation night from high school. What are the chances, right? 9 months later. But during that year, I learned my first test about life, and that is that change is the true nature of our world. Change is the true nature of your world. See, I thought, because I lived in this warm, secure, little, comfy environment where everything was always the same. Every day I came home from school, Mama was in the kitchen. Everything was so predictable. But I learned that change is the true nature of the world, because everything just exploded into chaos. Everything in my life. When Brian died, Mom and Dad got a divorce. Daddy ran off with a girl my age, which really pissed me off. But I knew that in order to stay in Daddy's life, I had to make friends with this girl so that I could have access to Daddy. So my first test changes the true nature of your world, changes the true nature of your world, was that Brian died. I get pregnant at age 17 in 1963, big scandal. I was kicked out of high school. Daddy disappeared. Mama didn't know what to do. She'd always just been a homemaker. So I suggested she get a job on a riverboat as a cook, because that's all she knew how to do. And I decided, because I couldn't do anything for Brian, and I felt so stinking guilty. I adored my little brother. I decided I was going to become a nurse. So the lesson, now that I look back with some mature eyes, was that betrayal, death, divorce, unplanned pregnancy, all that stuff, I realized the lesson is it's what I choose to do with it, and it was up to me. And I had to make all these decisions all of a sudden at age 17. I had to realize that if it's going to be, it's up to me. And that's why I'm so stubborn today. I didn't have anybody to talk to, not an aunt, not a neighbor, but I just knew that everything was going to be up to me. So I made all these choices right then and there. You know, it's interesting when I talk to nurses and doctors about why they became interested in their professional field, and they haven't thought about it. But I guarantee you, if you're a professional out there, if you're a nurse or a doctor, you think back, why did you become a healer? And you'll figure out, it's because I lost somebody. Something happened. So, number one, changes the true nature of your world. And the lesson, the test comes first. Then you get the lesson. I hate when that happens. But the lesson was that it's going to be up to me. Always going to be up to me. So then, life lesson number 2. Where have you got the list, Casey? Where are we at here? Oh, there you go. Lesson number 2. So now, I had to marry a guy across town because Charlie Jordan was absent. And I'm serious. Winona's 52. She never met Charlie Jordan. Never met the guy. Not a peep, not a call, not a postcard, nothing. But I married a guy across town, sort of the town jerk, if you want to know the truth. But it was a guy that had always had a crush on me and wanted to get married, so I married him. And had Ashley. We moved out to Hollywood. Hollywood. We moved out to Hollywood, and as soon as we got out there, I got a divorce from him, because, of course, I didn't love him. And I'm living off the Sunset Strip. Woo! I have barely a high school diploma that they sent me in the mail. I had never worked a day in my life. I had 2 babies. I was on welfare. Didn't know a soul. I was 22 stinking years old. And I didn't have a car. Their dad took the car from me. So if you can imagine being in LA without wheels, it was bad. The lowest point came when I actually had 103 temperature, and I needed to take her to the doctor. I had to take her on the city bus to the doctor. And I'll never forget that moment as long as I live. I felt completely worthless. Just a failure as a mom. I wasn't doing anything right. I thought I still was responsible for Brian's death, for Daddy's leaving us, for Mom's situation. Mom tried suicide. We found her at the last minute. But I thought I was responsible for everything that had ever happened. So I had no self-esteem. I mean, 0, zip, zilch. No self-esteem. And what happens when you don't have any self-esteem? You attract what you feel worthy of, because you won't let yourself have more than you think you deserve. And I really thought that everything was my fault. You attract what you feel worthy of in your life. I had no idea. So I asked Oprah, what do you think is the number one indicator for how healthy you're going to be, how happy you're going to be, and even how long you're going to live? What do you think it is?
Your confidence, your self-belief, your attitude.
You and the keys to the new Buick. The number one indicator for how healthy, how happy, and even how long you're going to live is your level of self-esteem. Because you're attracting what you think you're worthy of. When I asked Oprah, she said genes, genetics. That's not it. It's your level of self-esteem. And at the time, I had none. I didn't know anything about any of this stuff. So there was a guy that lived next door, and boy, was he a cutie. You all know who James Dean was? He looked just like James Dean. Drove a little blue Corvette. I had never had anybody pay attention to me like he did. My daddy was a real undemonstrative guy. You know, he just smoked unfiltered Camels, drove a truck, went hunting and fishing, and just a good old country guy that didn't hug me or tell me he loved me or anything. So when this guy came along, I fell hook, line, and sinker for him. Now, can you remember being 22 years old? I was so crazy about this guy because he was showing me affection, and he was really good to the kids. Like, he would make their lunches, put little poems in there. He played guitar. I was just crazy about him. We went to the movies one night, and when he went to the restroom, this guy came over and started talking to me. His name, the guy's name was Terry. When Terry came out of the bathroom and saw me talking to this other guy, he slapped me right there in the lobby of the movie theater. And guess what? I, Naomi Ellen Judd, thought that it was my fault, because it looked like to him that I was flirting with somebody else. How stupid could I be? How stupid could I be? I had no idea this stuff existed in the world. No earthly idea that that happened. I had never seen my mom and my dad touch. I'd never heard them say, "I love you," or Daddy pat Mom on the butt when he walked by her and she was doing dishes or anything. So I thought it was my fault. But even though it disturbed me, I didn't really do anything about it then. So a couple of days went by, and I was going to Alpha Beta grocery store. And he looked at the grocery list, and then when I came home, he checked the groceries and said that I had taken too long at the grocery store. What had I been doing? That really started me questioning. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody have anything they want to share?
A lot of us have been there in that same position.
Tell me more.
When you don't think you're worthy of anything, you accept what you think you've been given.
Same exact thing. When you think that when someone constantly tells you that you're not good enough, you start to actually believe it. And life starts to snowball.
Well, the test this time was a real hard one because I was so terrified, and I didn't know anybody. I knew the girl across the street who had a child Ashley's age, and I told her about what was going on, and she was terrified. She was terrified of him. And then, boys and girls, he moved in the apartment above her so he could watch me all the time because I told him I couldn't see him anymore. He moved in across the street so he could watch me 24/7. I remember one evening, and I was working 2 jobs, by the way. I was working at the Golden Carrot making smoothies, and I was working as a receptionist at an insurance company. But I came home from work, and there was a cheap Timex watch on my driveway that was crushed, and I thought, how did this get here? Well, Terry was working at a little mini mart, and he'd taken that Timex watch, put it under the tire of my car so that when I left, it showed exactly the time that I left. Things you learn in prison. It didn't occur to me till later. But to know that he was there all the time, watching our house 24/7, was so creepy. Say it again.
Yeah, heck yeah, that's nerve-wracking. Absolutely.
Especially when you have 2 kids and you don't know anybody. And I didn't have a car. We were living on Larrabee Street, just north of Sunset, so I could walk to the Golden Carrot. I could walk to the insurance company. I didn't even have wheels. Say it again.
I like you more now.
I heard you. I just wanted you to say it again. Do you have any comment about your own life?
Just some of the things you said hit home with me a little earlier, just the struggles and making the choices with what to do with that. I think I've had, kind of a crazy year, and there's definitely some choices to be made, so I appreciate what you have to share. Yeah. And definitely that guy sounds scary. Yeah.
But you would never in a million years. That's why there's such chameleons. So one night, I came in, and he had broken in the back of the house. The girls, thank God, were across the street over at Nancy's house. He had broken in, jumped out on me, grabbed me by the back of the throat, and he beat me pretty bad. Pretty bad. I'm still lucky that I don't have. He beat me mainly on the left side of my face, and my eye was swollen shut. And I can remember the taste of blood. I remember it tasted like iron. I can remember what the blood tasted like and what it smelled like. I remember picking up a big lamp, a table lamp, to sort of ward off the blows, and then he used it on me. And I will tell you this might be controversial, but knowing what I knew now and going through that night when I almost died, I have a gun. Thank you. But the most important thing is you have to learn how to use it. That is the single most important thing. If I had had a gun that night, everything might be very different. So, he beat me, then he raped me. I was 22 years old. And the whole time, all I could think about was the girls were across the street. And then he shot up heroin in front of me. I had no idea what any of this was. I was completely naive. I was so innocent. I look back on that and I think, God, he had this little rock, he had a spoon, he had his big lighter, and then he passed out. When he passed out, I booked it. I ran over to Nancy's house, borrowed her little Mustang, and drove to the Holloway Motel, which is still there. It's so weird. It's on Little Santa Monica Boulevard. It's just a little cheap motel that's still there after 30 years. And and Ashley and I would be going to the Oscars with Ashley, and we'd go by the Holloway Motel because it's on the route. And we would all just go, we're not looking, it's not there, we don't see it, we don't see door number 8. No, we don't remember anything about that night. It's weird. But we went to the Holloway Motel. I had no money, so the poor little clerk, he was freaked out. Winona and Ashley had on those pajamas that have their feet in, I remember those. And here I was, looking like a Halloween grotesque character. He let us have a room, and I kind of got my wits about me. And I remember This was a night that changed my life. I remember lying on that cold tile floor thinking, I don't have a choice. I have no money. I don't have a car. I'm responsible for 2 little girls. I got to get out of here. This guy is going to kill me. I don't want to be in Hollywood. I don't like the phony, baloney, materialistic, overstimulated culture. I want out of here. What do I do? And then all of a sudden it dawned on me. You always have choices. You always have a choice. And that night, I just started thinking things through, and I realized, I don't want to be here. I don't want my kids to grow up like this. I want to be back home in Kentucky. I want to put myself through nursing school. I want the girls to live in nature like my people, like the way I was raised. So you have to understand you always have a choice. I hope your choices don't get you in this kind of a dramatic situation. But sometimes you just have to remember, think twice. Think twice. And this is when I turned over a new belief. Lying on that cold, it hurt too. I can remember my face throbbing, and I looked up and there was drool and blood on the floor, and I thought, how in the world did little Naomi and Judd from Ashland, Kentucky get in this situation? But I did have a choice. I had no means, I had no materialism, I had no friends, no contacts or anything. But that night, we drove down to the West Hollywood Sheriff Station on San Vicente Boulevard to file a report, and I found out this guy had a record out of McAlester, Oklahoma. This guy was an ex-con. And Al Dugas, I'll never forget this guy, this deputy, told me that I better get out of town, that he was a bad actor, a real bad actor. And he said, he'll come after you. He will find you, and he will kill you. So I called my daddy the next day and asked him if he could send me one-way tickets for us to come home to Kentucky. So we moved to a mountaintop in Kentucky, no TV, no telephone. The girls were not amused. Winona kept threatening to report me to Child Protective Services. I put myself in nursing school. Winona was 12. Little Ashley was 8. And Winona found the guitar. I remember very plainly, I traded my buck knife for an old plastic string guitar for her, just for homemade entertainment. And as I handed her the guitar, she was 12, I remember I said, "Do not break this over my head." To say that we weren't getting along is a misunderstatement. And little 8-year-old Ashley, I started reading to her Chronicles of Narnia. And that I know is what made her imagination flourish and blossom. And that's why Ashley became this actress. So in that magic time, on that mountaintop, that gorgeous mountaintop in Kentucky, I put myself through nursing school, and I became head nurse in ICU. ICU. I was actually going to go on to the University of Louisville in Kentucky and get my MD and become a doctor so I could work with my people, the coal miners, the black lung folks. But Winona started singing, and then it was just magic. I knew it was like she had her destiny stamped on her forehead. So we had to move to Nashville. And little Ashley just had this amazing, pure heart. She's at Berkeley now getting her PhD in foreign policy, so I guess I better start making up T-shirts and bumper stickers. She'll be the first president. So Winona, Ashley, and I are living on this mountaintop. And like I said, choices changed the direction of all three of our lives right then. When you think you don't have a choice, I'm here to tell you you do. You can turn over a new belief system. And then number 3, right now, just when I thought it was safe, about 3 years ago, something happened to me, and I have been diagnosed with, and thank goodness it's rare, it's called severe treatment-resistant depression. So the last 3 years has been quite a journey. I'm very blessed that Mass General up in Boston, Massachusetts General Hospital up in Boston, is the #1 hospital. And the guy who's the head psychiatrist has taken my case. He doesn't take patients, but he was so interested in my case that he's taken me. My great-grandfather was a mass murderer. His name was David, and then David hung himself. My grandmother, good old Edie Mae, Grandma Edie Mae, burned down the family restaurant, stole the money, shot Grandpa in the head, shot Howard in the head, killed him, escaped to Baltimore with her lover, Jerry, who was in a freak accident a couple of months later. These are my family. And every generation in my family has a suicide. This season, it's my first cousin. So I studied genetics. I'm very lucky that, and I do this whenever anything happens. I sort of read and study the placebo-based double-blind clinical trials of the experts, and then I befriend them, and I use it on myself. So Dr. Francis Collins is the guy that decoded the genome. You've seen him on 60 Minutes, cover of Time magazine and all that. He's now the director of the NIH, National Institutes of Health, but he spent his week's vacation with me last year. We've been best friends for 25 years. He's taught me about genetics. So here's some good news. Your gene, of course, you know that's sort of the encyclopedia of who you are. This is the manual for who you are. 1/3 of your gene is your height, your hair color, all that kind of stuff. And it's written in stone. 1/3 of it is who you are that is unchangeable, okay? The good news I have for you is the other 2/3 is up to us. The other 2/3 is up to environment and choices. So I decided this cast of characters, psychopaths, that is in every generation, every nook and cranny of my family, and that's where I get my depression. I can choose. It's called epigenetics. That's what I'm studying now. Dr. Bruce Lipton, if you're interested in it, is the go-to guy on this. Epigenetics. These 2/3, environment and choices, every second of every day, like you chose to be here today. This is going to change your life. I believe that with all my heart, or I wouldn't have spent 7 hours on a plane trying to get here yesterday. I could be up at the barn with my horses or playing with all my dogs. I came here to tell you this story because I care about you, because I see myself in you, and I hope that there's something in what I'm sharing with you that will make you realize that you can turn over a new belief. If I hadn't, I think I'd be dead. I really do. I think that Terry would have gotten hold of me. I think he would have killed me. I lived for that year on the mountaintop, scared to death, afraid he'd find me. And for a long time, I'd pull up at a stoplight. Anybody here who's ever been a victim of domestic violence knows what I'm talking about. You pull up at a stoplight, you're looking around. But anyway, I realize now that 2/3 is up to me. So I've learned to practice what is called radical acceptance. Radical acceptance. And that's where I realize, okay, I've got this depression, and it sucks. Wish I didn't have it. There were weeks when I couldn't leave my house, weeks when I couldn't get off the couch. My big dog would lie on top of me. You couldn't even see me. I have a cute picture, though, and my nose is sticking out, my chin. But Maudie was laying on top of me because they know, don't they? I leave here and go to New York to work on animal rescue. They're my passion. But I figured out that, okay, this is radical acceptance. I have the depression, so I take my medicine, even though it puffs out my face, and I hate that. And I do my steps every day that I have figured out. My book will be out in December. And it talks about radical acceptance no matter what you're going through. No matter what you're going through. It talks about how to radically accept it. Realize that there's a history, there's a reason where you got where you are right now. What does radical acceptance mean to you? What do you think of?
Letting go. Freeing yourself.
Anybody have anything they want to share? I know you do. Oh, you're the last speaker, so you get to tell your story. See, it's our stories that connect us. We have to tell our stories. That's one of the things that we do at our house. On Thursday night, I try to have family night. And if Wyatt and Ashley are in town, and my grandson and all of us, they know that supper's at 6 o'clock. And I can cook. There's a lot of things I can't do, but I can cook. So they come over, and when you say pass around the salt, you sort of pass around your story of the day. I think that's real critical for families, especially in today's culture. I'm going to have to leave you. He's telling me I'm out of time. Does anybody have any thoughts, anything they want to share, whether it's about domestic violence or just remember what I said, though. You attract what you feel worthy of. That's your finances, that's your relationships, that's everything in your life. Everything. You're attracting what you feel worthy of. You won't let yourself have more than you think you deserve. And when I asked Oprah, I was really surprised she didn't know that. She's one smart cookie, let me tell you. And when I said, what do you think is the number one indicator for how healthy, how happy, and even how long you're going to live? It's your level of self-esteem. Would you guys do this with me? It's called a meditation. If you'll just repeat after me. May I be at peace. May I awaken to the light of my own true nature. May I be healed. May I be a source of healing for others. Well, I'll leave you with what Elizabeth Taylor said to her 8 husbands. I won't be keeping you any longer.
This way. No, this way. This way. This way.